Alright, engine was cold and I just started it. I've made some progress on this generator problem. And one of the things I found out is that part of the hunting problem was due to the auto idle solenoid right here. I've got it on auto idle right now. So right now that solenoid is pulled in. And when it's in pulled in position, through this spring, it's actually pulling the governor down, so it's in the idle position. So what's going to happen is when I flip this switch off, it's going to want to kick up to high idle. High speed, I should say. Pretty smooth. Might have the idle down a little too low. Now when it's on auto idle, the reason why it's surging is because the solenoid is hanging up. That solenoid's got corrosion on it, and every once in a while it doesn't pull all the way in. It stays about a 1/4 of an inch out or 1/8 of an inch out. And that's what's causing that. So I'm going to take this bracket and solenoid off and I'm going to clean it up on the wire wheel. See if I can recreate it again so you can see it happen again. See all the rust on there? It's not going all the way back in. I manually push it all the way back in. It stops surging. I'm going to take this off and clean it up. Once you get the bracket off, cleaning the solenoid is pretty easy. It actually comes all the way out. So you can see all of this rust, this heavy rust on here is what it's hanging up on. So I'm going to pop that little E-clip or C-clip off and wire wheel this up. Here it is cleaned up. It's pretty damaged and rough, but that part, most of that part isn't in the actual solenoid coil area, and more importantly it's now not so large that it's going to get hung up inside there. So now I'll return it to service. Okay, let's give it a test. Still not working. Still doing the same thing. Matter of adjusting this bracket. Alright, I've readjusted this bracket. It's got slotted holes, and that seems to have corrected the issue of the thing hanging up. So try this. I'll turn it back on and kicks it right back down like it's supposed to. It's still hunting on high speed after the engine warms up some now. show you. Well, it's sputtering at high speed, so I'm not surprised that the governor is acting up. So, still something probably in the carburetor high-speed jet circuit, but at this point I think I've gone as far as I can with this carburetor. I could use this to run probably some loads that I'm not really overly concerned about voltage fluctuations. Oh well, that would be like most of the stuff you'd want to run. We would probably run power tools okay with this thing. See how smooth the idle is. The other thing I did yesterday was I changed the position of this spring down one hole. Basically, the further down that the spring goes, or the further away this spring is located from this arm, the less sensitive the governor is. So I might try putting that back now and seeing how it acts. I moved the spring back to its original location. Well, it sounds smoother, but that's just because it's at lower RPM now. Not even making enough voltage. Oh, my adjustment screw fell out. Well, that's a little better. Still not cranking out enough voltage though. So the RPMs need to be just a tiny bit higher. Here's the funny thing about that. This bracket right here, which is your manual throttle adjustment, the further you push this down, the higher the RPMs. The problem is, I've got to push all the way. I've got the adjustment, the stop screw out all the way, and I can't push it down any further because the bracket actually hits right here. So that tells me that I'm still not pulling this governor arm over far enough. So, not sure exactly how I'm going to want to deal with that. When I have the spring in a lower position, it makes the governor less sensitive. It also has the effect of pulling this arm over a little further, so I get a little bit higher RPM when I do that. Still hate the way it's running. Moves up for a little bit, and then it starts sputtering, hunting again. It's still at the low end of the RPM range where it should be, but it's just making it in the 110 volt range there on the meter. I'm going to manually rotate the throttle so you can see where it should be. Right there. You hear it sputtering every once in a while and kicking. Shouldn't be running like that. It should run smooth like that constantly. Just like that. Really quite maddening. I bet you a new carburetor would do wonders for this thing. Just don't know if I want to bet the $200 cost on a new carburetor to find out. Alright, now I'm going to shut it off and see if it restarts easily. Okay, so now it's off. Key back on. Probably even drop that idle speed down a little bit. Oh, a little too low. I'm not sure what the specs are for the low speed idle on this. I know some guys have mentioned on some of the forums that they even solved some of the hunting problems by just turning up the idle so that it wasn't bouncing back so low, but can't imagine the idle should be any higher than that. Seems actually a little fast, but I'll leave it there. Alright, I'm going to go grab something to put a load on this thing. Here's my Craftsman half-inch electric impactor wrench. It's the 120 volt 8 amp. My breaker's on. Basically acts the same way whether it's under load or not. Well, the auto idle's working like it should, that's for sure. Well, I picked up a new spark plug. I guess I'll throw that in it just for giggles. Listen to that thing speed back up. Funny, the butterfly's not even up against the screw. So the auto idle solenoid probably needs to be moved over just a little bit. So if I manually kick down the throttle, now the butterfly goes back. So I got to move this over that way just a smidge. Here's what this plug looks like. Got signs that it was running hot. Center electrodes got some white on it and carbon. Not surprised with all the experimental trials and tribulations with the carburetor I've been having. So I'm gonna put a new plug in. Should gap it, but I don't really feel like going to look up the gap right now. See how it runs with the new plug in there. Exactly the same. Oh, I guess that was $2 and change on a spark plug I didn't have to spend. Well, I'll keep the other plug, I'll clean it and keep it as a spare. Well, I'm going to put a battery on there, grind off those old screws that are corroded on there and put a battery on this thing. Well, I finished work on the Makita generator a couple of weeks ago, and last thing I did was I put the battery on, and then I made a video of it running and inadvertently erased that video, and I wanted to close out this project series with a video of it running, so I figured I might as well try a cold start and see just how well that battery's holding a charge. And it's been pretty cold here. It's January 10th today, 2012, and let's see. Makeshift vinyl cover off. I couldn't get around to bolting this cover down. I'm going to take it off because it rattles real loud. Alright, fuel on. Now turn the auto idle off so that it revs right up. Choke full out. Guess that battery's not very good. Alright, so we'll go with the old manual pull start. stalled out instead of idling. Maybe I didn't let it warm up long enough. Put the choke half on. Nope, full on. Again, it runs much smoother at that throttle setting, but that throttle setting doesn't correspond to a high enough voltage output. So, after all of that, still not right. It's a shame, but I'm going to have to quit on this one. I think at this point I'm just going to have to admit defeat. I mean, I'd use this thing to run a power tool, you know, if I need to run a drill or a saw out there in the sticks, and I'll wheel it out there and run something like that on it, but I certainly wouldn't want to use it here at the house for backup, you know, during a storm. I don't want my expensive electronic controller on my boiler, for instance, to be running off a voltage like this. That's erratic. So, you know, I'll keep my eyes peeled for a deal on a new old stock carburetor. One might pop up eventually. But, you know, new carburetor, I think last time I checked was, you know, almost $200 with shipping. And I just don't know whether or not it would really warrant putting that kind of money into this thing. You know, there's also a question about these springs. These springs were really badly corroded. You know, maybe they don't have the tension that they're supposed to have any longer. And that could be, you know, part of the problem with the governor. But you can still hear it missing at high speed a little bit. So it's no wonder that the governor's, you know, kind of going crazy. My theory is that it's missing at high speed, so it loses RPM, then the governor tries to basically yank that throttle over and get it back up to maintain RPM. Not horrible, but again, the voltage is too low. I bring that throttle up a little bit. That's just at the bottom range of where it should be on the voltmeter. And you can see it's missing more. Yeah, so I mean it's got to skip at the high speed. It's just not right. I still think we're dealing with carburetor. We're dealing with a combination of me basically being Dr. Frankenstein here and taking two carburetors. Neither one was in the greatest of shape. Two carburetors that weren't the same. They were similar, trying to piecemeal them together. In the process of trying to do that, I ended up doing damage to you know, some of those jets because they were so stuck in there. So that's all for now, folks.